Polygamy, a controversial topic that sparks debate among scholars, theologians, and everyday believers. But what exactly does the Bible say about it? Is it permitted, condemned, or simply tolerated? Today, we uncover the truth, straight from the pages of Scripture. And by the end of this video, you might see this issue in an entirely new light. To understand the biblical stance on polygamy, we must start at the very beginning. In Genesis 2 verse 24, God establishes the foundation of marriage. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. Notice it says wife, singular, a clear model of monogamy. But if that's the case, why do we see so many biblical figures with multiple wives? Was polygamy an exception, or was it a deviation from God's ideal? Many theologians argue that the one-flesh union signifies an exclusive, singular partnership between a man and a woman. But in ancient societies, polygamy often served social and economic functions. Was it a deviation from God's original plan or an accommodation for human circumstances? To answer that, we must dig deeper into the biblical narrative. The first recorded instance of polygamy appears in Genesis 4 verse 19. Lamech, a descendant of Cain, took 2 wives. But here's where it gets interesting. Lamech isn't exactly a model of righteousness. He is depicted as violent and boastful. Could this be a subtle hint that polygamy wasn't part of God's plan? Lamech's actions are recorded in a passage filled with rebellion and moral corruption. The surrounding verses describe his arrogance and his violent nature, suggesting that his practice of polygamy may have been a reflection of that corruption rather than a divinely sanctioned act. The absence of any positive affirmation of his behavior in the text raises an important question. Did polygamy emerge as part of humanity's drift away from God's ideal? Despite this, some of the most significant biblical figures practiced polygamy. Abraham had Sarah, but also took Hagar, leading to deep family conflict, Genesis 16. Jacob married both Leah and Rachel, creating a household filled with rivalry, Genesis 29. King David had multiple wives, and his son Solomon, he took it to another level, 700 wives and 300 concubines, 1 Kings 11 verse 3. But here's where things get even more intriguing. Every single case of polygamy among the patriarchs led to tension. Abraham's decision to have a child with Hagar, Sarah's maidservant, resulted in jealousy and division. Jacob's marriages to Leah and Rachel, both orchestrated by deception, caused intense sibling rivalry. Even King David, whom God described as a man after his own heart, suffered grave consequences due to his many wives. His household was plagued by betrayal, rebellion, and even murder. Every instance of polygamy in the Bible comes with strife, jealousy, or consequences. Sarah and Hagar's rivalry led to lasting division. Rachel and Leah's competition caused heartbreak. David's multiple wives led to family chaos, and Solomon's excess led him into idolatry, drawing God's anger. Not once does the Bible show polygamy bringing harmony or God's explicit approval. King Solomon's story is particularly striking. Despite his wisdom, his marriages to foreign wives led him astray. 1 Kings 11 verse 4 states, "As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God." This ultimately led to the division of his kingdom after his death. Was this the final warning against polygamy? But what about the New Testament? Did Jesus or Paul clarify the matter? In Matthew 19 verses 4 to 6, Jesus reaffirms the Genesis model, saying, "Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female?" He then adds, "The two shall become one flesh." Again, not multiple. Paul echoes this in 1 Timothy 3 verse 2, stating that church leaders should be the husband of one wife, reinforcing monogamy as the standard. In multiple passages, Paul speaks of marriage in singular terms, emphasizing fidelity and commitment between one husband and one wife. Ephesians 5 verses 31 to 33 draws a parallel between marriage and Christ's relationship with the church, one of exclusive devotion. This further cements monogamy as a biblical ideal. One question remains. Was polygamy considered a sin in the Bible? While the consequences of polygamy are clear, we don't see explicit condemnation from God in the Old Testament. However, we also don't see God's blessing upon it. Instead, we see repeated patterns of conflict and heartache. One striking example is King David. Despite being a man after God's own heart, his multiple marriages led to disastrous outcomes within his family. Yet, God never directly punished him for polygamy itself. His downfall came from adultery and murder, 2 Samuel 12. Similarly, Solomon's polygamy led him into idolatry, which did bring divine judgment. God's command for marriage were always centered around the idea of faithfulness and exclusivity. Deuteronomy 17 verse 17 warned that kings should not take many wives. He must not take many wives, or his heart will be led astray. He must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold. This wasn't just a suggestion. It was a warning against the very thing that led Solomon astray. While polygamy was permitted, it was never ideal. The New Testament shift towards monogamy suggests that God's design for marriage was always meant to be one man and one woman, reflecting Christ and his church. Here's where it gets interesting. Some argue that biblical polygamy was a cultural necessity, providing for widows and ensuring family survival. In times of war and hardship, polygamy may have been a practical solution to ensure the survival of families and communities. However, as society evolved, the biblical emphasis on monogamy became clearer. Even today, some cultures practice polygamy, often citing biblical precedents. But should those precedents be viewed as divine approval or as historical records of human behavior? In modern times, most Christian denominations reject polygamy, citing the New Testament teachings on marriage. However, there are still groups who argue that biblical polygamy was never condemned outright and may still hold validity. What do you think? Should we view biblical polygamy as a tolerated practice of the past? Or does it still hold relevance today? Let's continue the conversation in the comments below. We want to hear your thoughts. If you found this exploration thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into biblical mysteries. Until next time, keep searching for the truth.